UC San Diego master's student Gabriella Berman holds up a jar.
This is a piece of bone, so they grow in it, and I study the animals. So sometimes I have to take
That's
it.
an animal, not a plant.
Yeah, these are animals.
Okay.
A bunch of animals. Each string is an animal.
Yes, animals. Those noodle-shaped fronds are worms. And they're unique because they live on bones in the deep ocean. Bones like this chunk of whale vertebrae in a saltwater tank in the Rouse lab.
It's kind of old now. I think it's from 2019, but it used to have Osedax. Osedax is the name of the organism that I study, growing out of it.
Osedax rely on roots to draw nutrition from bones that settle on the sea floor.
They colonize the bone. It's both their home and a source of food.
A whale backbone, like this one, photographed off the California coast recently, provides a boost of nutrition in a place where food can be scarce. Berman's deep ocean samples live in the fridge in the lab until she can photograph, process, and sample the animal's genetic blueprint. She's helping establish a baseline for the species.
A lot of what we're looking at now is completely new information about where they are and how they're distributed in the ocean.
But Berman worries the push to mine the ocean floor for scarce resources puts the species in harm's way. And she's concerned about an ocean that is changing as the climate warms. That's one reason why she plans to go to the climate conference in Glasgow, Scotland.
That conference and the deliberations of all of the nations that are part of it really rely on science in order to inform the way that they approach the problem of climate change.
Margaret Lynen is the director of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. She says the ocean is finally an important part of the climate discussion.
93% of the heat that's been generated from greenhouse gases is in the ocean. 93%. So it has really protected us from far greater impacts on land.
A recent UN climate report concludes the world isn't moving fast enough to change in the face of climate change. The UN Secretary General says time is running out to meet the Paris Climate Accord greenhouse gas reduction targets, and the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, says there is a leadership gap. But Lynen remains optimistic that the scientists and world leaders will make progress at COP26, the Conference of Parties gathering in Scotland.
The role of advocacy is to say, do this as rapidly as we can. And the role of sort of the pragmatic negotiators is to say, this is how fast we can do it without killing our economy. And somewhere in between is what actually gets put on the table at COP.
If we're going to save the world, we're going to do it with batteries.
Michael Ferry is the director of energy storage and systems at UC San Diego. He says batteries are uniquely positioned to help decarbonize two of the economy's largest and most important sectors.
The first is the power sector, which is electricity production and supply, and transportation, which is, of course, how we move ourselves, how we move our goods, our food, and all of the other necessities of our modern world.
Ferry says electric cars and utility-scale battery storage is getting better and more efficient. He says advances in the past 5 years prove the technology is already mature enough to have a positive impact. California hit a milestone this past June when, for about 10 minutes, 4% of the state's electricity was supplied by batteries. Ferry will be in Glasgow next week to huddle with other scientists. He says he looks forward to seeing the United States reestablish itself as a leader in addressing climate change.
I think it's incredibly important. And I think we have to be, again, optimistic. We have to be bold. And we've been doing that in California for the last 15 years when it comes to climate change. And we have results to share with the world.
Ferry says if it can be done in California, it can be done elsewhere. Erik Anderson, KPBS News.